So it's a personal choice. Like I've never been pregnant. So like I'm not necessarily the best teacher for pregnant people, but I do like working with people who have been pregnant or are pregnant that do yoga and want to do some of the translations. There's a whole pregnancy yoga teacher training, and it's very similar to the same idea of like always do your twists in an opening direction and things like that. Putting pressure on the belly is of course a no-no, but putting pressure on the hips is okay. So they've been able to do the forward folds, no problem.
So you would actually put it here, because I've been told don't stop the blood here.
Well, it's not stopping the blood, so I mean, it's up to the individual person. Maybe bring it down more, but yeah, they were fine with it. It's not on the bladder, and it's not on the belly. It's on the upper leg. So they can actually stretch it out over the legs more too, and be a little bit more floaty. But I really just let people get into it and let them have their own experience, as long as they know about prenatal, yoga and that kind of thing. But yeah, people who are pregnant love it. Yeah, for sure. So specifically a forward fold or just like all
Yeah, I was thinking about what Heather said about like maybe putting it right at the breast line or something instead of right here. Because I heard in Thai massage you don't want to stop the blood, or push down too hard right here.
Hips seem to be okay. If you're up here for a pregnant woman, because all of the organs are getting squished away from center anyhow, that would probably feel a little bit more intense, but they could put it up over the whole chest. I mean, yeah, I would just do more restorative poses with them than even the beginner poses. So,
And a lot of the squats.
yes, squats are great.
Oh, they would love that.
Yeah, I mean,
Squats and
all of this.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that's the whole practice of being suspended, because there's so much compression on the spine, especially for the sciatic nerve,
Yeah.
that this is incredibly helpful. It's also great for them to just get in and cocoon, too. A couple of my pregnant friends have wanted a swing just to give birth and to have it, for their baby, so, I mean, that just makes sense, right? So, yeah, and of course babies love it, so, people come over and just put their kid in it. So, it's so inviting. Little kids absolutely love it, and so that's an easy one. So yeah, so folded leaf, floating leaf, folded leaf, they're kind of the same thing. Folded leaf is a pose that we do in the acro yoga community. Floating is a little bit different because our forearms on the ground. And for me, the swing is a great partner. It's like the best assistant and the perfect way to adjust the body. You can do this acro-aerial combination that I'm happy to play around with closer to the end of our training, where the person can still be facing you, but they don't have to actually hold up all your weight, and then you can do some tricks and stuff and come back down. So that position where the swing is holding at the hips, so if the swing is too low, for example, if you're holding at the hips and you go down, you won't have enough room for the upper body. So that's why I don't usually bring the swing down too low. You just have to find that spot, the same thing in headstand. If it's too low when you're in headstand, you're kind of crunch with the body, so it's just a personal preference. So I really love the cat's meow, which is like a version of doing the down dog with the one leg up and pulling back and forth. And the one leg raises, and then from there we did the chaturangas and the knee to elbows, the push-ups, and then I usually don't do the upside down dog in the headstand in a basic practice, but I realized, in my beginner classes, but I realized we will revisit this whole sequence when we get into the intermediate, where we get way more into the handstands and we're strengthening and stuff like that. But when we hook the foot, we're already in the one-legged down dog, and then we just hook the other foot and we're in upside down dog. So it's kind of fun to show people how to turn their dog upside down and then frown. Okay, so that pretty much covers all of 2. Can everyone kind of visualize each pose and kind of see themselves doing it? Always keep the feet heavy, right? We don't bring them higher than the hips. We will slide out and lose our anchor. So we always have at least one hook and one anchor point when possible. Sometimes our anchor is the ground, right? If we come down, we have our hands down. That's how we're anchoring. Great. So floating Buddha. So in this basic sequence, our number 1 pose is floating Buddha. So this is how we get into all the other stretches. So floating Buddha is with the leg loops at the ankles. Swing behind the back. So we went from an upright position to do the squats, lunges, and back bends to the forward folds where the swing goes to the hips. Don't fall asleep, Amy. I will come wake you up. Just like, what? We glazed over. And then sit up. So from forward folds, we bring the swing behind the back again, so for floating Buddha. So the difference between floating Buddha and Shalaksan, which is number 4, is from the ankles, the leg loops can come up to the knees. When we bring the leg loops closer to the center of the body, it's easier. When we bring the leg loops away from the center of the body, it's harder. It's the same with the shoulders. Shoulders are easier than holding onto something with your hands, right? So Shalaksan is actually a little bit of an easier sequence than the floating Buddha. I just keep Shalaksan for last because we get into flying butterfly and some other really big openers, the bow, that's challenging for the newbies. So floating Buddha can be made easier by stretching the swing down underneath the bum and just letting them have a seat. That's totally okay. We'll see how we do today in the workshop. Some people might need a little bit of a break, and you'll see some of the restorative. Yes?
My experience when my ankles were in the leg loops, I tend to hyperextend through the back of my knee. I have a tear on my meniscus, knee tear, and I started to feel a little pain just behind my knee, and I'm sure it will get stronger and more open, but would you just recommend to stretch it out a little wider?
Yeah, so you remember me recommending expanding the leg loops for anybody that has any pain.
Okay.
So that is really common until we learn how to engage the legs so the knees don't lock out.
Okay.
Then we can just use the leg loops expanded. That's why I made them nicely.
Perfect.
And it's totally okay to do that conversion. And sometimes I will teach it that way. When I'm working with somebody, again, with a lot of stagnation in the legs, they'll find the pressure behind the knees or the pressure at the ankles uncomfortable over time. So we just give them some relief and spread it out. The more surface area that it covers, the easier it is. The more bunched up, the harder it is. Right? That makes sense too. Like this is kind of how I get into learning the pivot points and the physics of the body and that kind of thing. Like getting into why is it easier when we're closer to the center, right? It's like a seesaw. When we move out towards the end, there's more weight, there's more stress or strain on the body, more force. So windshield wipers. Can everyone visualize the windshield wipers? I usually go around and test people, but I don't really test you guys right now. Windshield wipers. Okay. Floating pigeon. Right?
I like that.
So good. Hold the end. From floating pigeon. So we do usually do it on both sides. Floating pigeon, windshield wiper, floating pigeon, windshield wiper. And then we'll go into a side tree. So side tree, that one's a little tricky. Can you remember all the details for that? Do you want me to visualize? It's only tricky because of the hand hold and the different variations that we do. Let me keep an eye on the time too. I think we're good, but we're just having a nice chat. Yeah, plenty of time. You're doing great, guys. Okay. So when I'm here, see my engagement when I pull the leg loop down? So I bend the knee in. I'm going to do the other side. The knee's like not having it. Okay. So I reach up as high as I can. So from floating pigeon, I have to make sure that this hand reaches up. If the hand is here, you're going to wind up leaning back than leaning forward. So I reach up, the knee comes down towards the ground, my foot finds the inner thigh, press forward and arch. So most people are going to be like this, right? That's okay. See the knees coming up, hips are back. So side tree, so just think of like side tree, like triangle pose. It's like this. Flying ninja is like that. So side tree, flying ninja. Okay? Yeah. Really easy. So from there, the wide straddle T is like the neutralizing pose. Right? So hips heavy. So this is different than this. So when we transition to some of these poses, I gave them different names just because I wanted to make sure the hips stay low and we really get that heart opening. It's such a different stretch in the body to get this really deep length through the whole torso. So, namaste. So we go from star to namaste. Does everybody remember namaste? I know. To reverse namaste. Really good. Really nice. So wide straddle, star, namaste, and then ladle. Ladle. That was still the grading.
That was a strong pose.
That's a strong pose.
Great.
That's as strong as we're going to get in this beginner practice. But you can tell, like, just a few seconds is enough. 30 seconds would be a lot.
But rarely do we ever put ourselves in that place. That's why it's so good.
You have an inversion and a back bend together.
Yeah.
So back bends and inversions are the best things for the body. But an inverted back bend, forget about it. Yeah, it's a lot though. And then from there, we're going to bend both knees and come into swing Baddha. It's Baddha Konasana. And so remember, so write this down, guys, when we're in, just write it on your outline. For flying monkey, you have to reach forward and grab for the leg loops. Most people are going to hold on to the swing. It's not the end of the world, but this is a totally different pose. Okay? When we reach forward for the leg loops and pull, we have a lot more engagement and strength, and then it's preparing for the wide straddle. And then from there, we usually come into a kamikaze, but we're not going to do that yet. You can see the body just wants to do
Oh, I
it.
missed that.
It's all right. It happens quick. And then from there, we're going to go into the W. Wow. Okay? If you don't do the X for the W, you're most likely going to pull, and it's going to slide up. So it's sometimes good to do it the other way, so you know why we thread, because we'll forget that in class. We'll be like, I don't know what happened. Pulled on the leg loops, and all of a sudden they came up. It's the same when we're here, and then if I go to sit, but I didn't lower my hips, that happens. Not the end of the world. Just come to hummingbird, which we'll learn tomorrow. Okie dokie. So that's all of number 3. So everybody feel like they can do it? If I asked you to do it now, and without my instruction, would you be able to do it? Not you, Amy.
Hopefully remember all the vocabulary.
Awkwardly. Cool. Do you guys want to practice for a few minutes so we each can take a turn?
Question about modifications.
Modifications.
For people who the hips aren't open enough to keep it out of the knees, how would you modify the Baddha Konasana and the flying monkey part?
Every single person's been able to do it with it at the ankles. If you want to spread it out, it's no problem. So every modification is spreading out the material, right? So if you're here, you can lift and do the same thing. Every single person, even if their knees are like this, they can still press up. So I've never had an issue with that one. I have had an issue with flying butterfly and coming forward. This is really extremely challenging for people. So that's why we bring it up to the next level and come into high diver. I'll do that on this tomorrow. That's what I mean. So ankles would be hardest. Knees are next. Bring it all the way up to the hips if somebody needs to. And that way they're not actually supporting all their weight with their arms too. So this is okay. And then tomorrow we'll also learn that this is okay, where we actually cover the entire thigh and do our lunges like this. So lots of different variations. And the person will immediately tell you by their face how they're doing. And you can just spread it out and get into a place without, like still challenge people, like instead of trying to avoid that intensity, just let them feel like that pressure on the body and then bring them out quickly. Still have them do it, because otherwise they'll stay in their resistance. We want to encourage them a little out of that stuckness, because as soon as they get into it, it's going to release in like a second. It's really quick. Okay, sleepy time. Everyone sit up. Come on. Seriously, it's not nap time.
No, it's like siesta, right?
It's like the person with high energy has no tolerance for this. It's like, what's happening? It's the in the food.
And also, we have a very soothing voice. No, right? When you hear a soothing voice, it just...
That's the first time I've ever heard that.
It doesn't mean that it's like it's sleeping, right?
It's a very soothing voice. Thank you.
That's
You have a soothing voice. She was singing Amazing Grace.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, this is so
Or if
nice.
you have somebody that talks and has a nice melody with their voice, it's kind of like...
That's sweet. Okay, so we're going to go through things backwards.
Speaking of aerial yoga, look at that spider there doing the spider on his strings. I just thought it was
I
kind of
can't
cute.
see him.
It's right here, if you see him directly. He just reminds me of that. He's got his little he's like hanging out there.
Yeah, they're the pros.
And
They're like,
speaking of